Alaikum everybody. This is Yvonne here from my Halal Kitchen. Yes, we are live. Okay, I've had a few technical difficulties with this Facebook and then YouTube video, so bear with me that I'm a little late. I was trying to do this from my computer and it was not able to download some software or something like that. So I've had to resort to my phone and I don't really have the stand. So I'm just going to start, and I think everybody can probably see me from here. So it's not so visually great, but the discussion is really what I want to have, more importantly, with all of you, about the topic of, who really cares about halal. And unfortunately, I can't see any comments, and you should be able to make as many comments as you want. Let me see. Messages are visible. Okay, so yeah, there's the option to add in your comments here. And I want you to comment. I want this to be a discussion. But if you are watching this video, after it's recorded, and you go ahead and add a comment, I'll come back and look at everything and just kind of try to keep the discussion going. What's more important to me right now is to talk with all of you about this whole concept of halal and what do you guys really think? How much do you care about it? Because I know I care a lot. I've been in this food business since 2008. And the reason I started my website, myhalalkitchen.com, was because I felt no one was really talking about halal, and I felt like there wasn't like any appreciation for it. Now, this is me when I was in Chicago in the US, and not a new Muslim, I would say Muslim for maybe 6 years at that time. But I had a real passion for cooking and for food. Wanted to make a lot of cuisine that I grew up with, Italian food, American foods, and Hispanic foods. So I was interested in, substitutes and things like that for making things halal that weren't, like dishes with pork and wine and all of that. So to me, I thought, this would be really interesting to people who also wanted to try different cuisines and then, find some really great substitutes that were also healthy. Because my understanding or interpretation of halal has always been, things that are good for us and not just permissible, but things that are good for us. So, I didn't want to substitute with, unhealthy food dyes and, or buy from unethical, sources and things like that. Because from my understanding of what Islam is, there's, it's not just about the food product itself, but it's also about the ethical standing, behind the company, the person running it, the people, humaneness of humanely treating animals and things like that. And then there's also this concept that we don't talk about often, which is tayyib, or purity, I guess you could say. So in Surah Baqarah, it's mentioned, Allah mentions, eat what is halal and tayyib. So we eat what is permissible and pure. And I really took that to heart because I've always been a foodie. I've always been interested in really good and healthy food since I was really young. I was always into, wellness and eating right. And I was fascinated that foods that came that were mentioned in Quran were things that I kind of grew up with, like pomegranates and dates and figs and olives and things like that. So I always understood that those were very wonderful foods, and so I was really fascinated that they were mentioned specifically in the Quran. So I really took this whole halal thing to heart, and that's why I started the website. I wanted to be cooking great healthy recipes, making it easy for people to find, access to halal products, and that was fun in Chicago because I had, lots of ethnic stores, Mediterranean stores that I could go to and, just really explore. And if somebody was making a really good product, I wanted to tell all of you about it because I just thought, they deserved some recognition, and they deserved to be known, and also to, educate the wider public about halal, because there's always this, whenever there's mystery, sometimes there's like fear, and we know that like that was part of the whole, I don't really get a lot of hate mail or anything, but sometimes people would be very skeptical, or very not understanding about what halal is, and had all these assumptions. And I, once, but that's how I knew that we needed to educate people about what halal really is, and kind of wipe away all this mystery and unveil, what really halal means in terms of food and lifestyle and things like that. So I've learned a lot in the past, 10, 12 years of doing this. And what have I learned? I've learned a lot about food companies, ones that are, let's say, Muslim owned and operated, that are making halal products. I've also learned a lot about non-Muslim companies that are really interested in the ethical foundation of halal, and they want to certify some products that are halal so that they can reach this, not just the Muslim market, but people who are interested in transparency in their products and foods and things like that. So I've met some fascinating people, and people who are really, good-hearted, and really want to create great products and great food, and they care. I've met certifiers, certification agencies, auditors, people with lots of different opinions on slaughter, animal sacrifice, things like that. I've, witnessed those things myself at factories and farms, and I've seen some brands come and go. Sometimes they're supported by people, and sometimes they go out of business because they're not. That's made me really sad, because I've seen some really good companies just, not be able to survive in the landscape of, just not, just having to maybe charge a higher price because they were getting their products organically, and, it just costs more money. So without the support of the halal consumer, they weren't able to survive, and that's made me really sad. But what I've not seen very much of are a few things, and that's what I want to talk about. And I also want you guys to hopefully, tell me more on your side what you're thinking, because I really want to understand better where everyone stands as a consumer, as a person who needs to eat and wants to eat healthy things, and who wants to feed their families really well, and who cares about maybe where the food comes from. So let me tell you what I've not seen much of. I've not seen much input from scholars talking about, organic, chemical-free, pesticide-free, GMO foods, things like that. It seems like, for the most part, scholars don't want to get too involved in this, because my guess is because they know if they start talking one way or another, they may be interpreted as giving a fatwa about something, or a ruling, and that would really sway a community one way or the other. And maybe they don't really understand the food system, or they don't understand food science. I mean, it's all very complex. So I can understand why some scholars would stay away from the topic, but I do wish more would get involved, and there would be like this, my dream is to have like a convergence of food scholars, religious scholars, food scientists, food experts, and everybody kind of having this dialogue, so that, we can sort of relate it to that foundation of Islam, and all the different variables that go into what constitutes something halal, and all the different interpretations. of that. So I've not seen much of that. Um, I've not seen much focus on the tayyib part. So as I mentioned, tayyib is like the purity or organic stuff. And I know organic is it's popular in mainstream culture, right? Mainstream food culture. I mean, that's a great thing. Talking about organic, quote unquote, clean foods. Not really a fan of that term, but veganism and transparency in food. Those are all good things because they really kind of make people dig a little deeper about what's in the food, what's in the food process, what goes into manufacturing. I mean, people do start talking about that, and I like that because it's important to know where your food is coming from. But I don't understand why, as a Muslim community, we are not talking more about the importance of halal and tayyib, being permissible, eating what's permissible and what's pure. Because in today's food system, there are so many different problems going on. There's, food poisoning, corruption, fraud. I mean, and it's not just in the U.S. or Europe or there's things happening in Turkey where I am now. So I think this isn't just a Muslim issue. Actually, this is an issue for all people who need to eat, which is everybody. But because we have this foundation and this knowledge as Muslims about our food standards and dare I say rules. I mean, there are guidelines. That's probably a better word. Then why don't we dig into this more? Why don't we talk about not just our food and what's in it and is it organic or not, but what about the deeper issues like the humaneness of the treatment of animals? I mean, I know that's becoming more of a thing and popular, and I'm so happy about that because we do need to address ethical treatment of the animals before they get to our plate. That's a really important one, and I just don't feel like there's enough discussion there. I feel like we have a lot more work to do on that topic. Ethical treatment of workers in these factories or companies that bring food to the table. You hear a lot about that in the chocolate world or coffee world, sustainable, fair trade, ethical coffees and chocolates are becoming really popular. I mean, do Muslims support that kind of thing? I mean, in my opinion, we should, because that's part of the foundation of our faith is justice for all. It's so there's this whole cycle of variables that go into when something is grown in the ground to when it is brought to your table. So I feel like those discussions don't happen enough. And I wonder if you as consumers just feel like, no one's talking about it. So if they don't care, why should I? Why should I care? If the people in charge of halal food aren't really making that an important thing, then why should we? Why should we care? We'll just buy organic, and that'll be good enough. As if it's not halal in terms of sacrifice, but it's cleaner and better and healthier because it's organic and they've told us that it's humanely raised and humanely sacrificed in their own way. And that's problematic because most consumers don't really understand that there are different interpretations of humane sacrifice. And I don't think there's as many different interpretations of humane treatment of animals or raising of animals. I think that's all pretty standard. But when it comes to the sacrifice part, there are differences, and I think most Muslims kind of aren't aware of that. And so I don't blame people for feeling frustrated or confused, or like I had one person on Instagram comment and she made a really good point. She said, it's I'm paraphrasing her, but she said the halal meat markets or ethnic meat markets are horrible. Have you seen the quality? Um, and they lack variety, but she was really more focused on the quality of the meats. And she said if you go to like a Whole Foods, you see juicy chicken and beautiful steaks and things like that. And that is you know they work really hard on appearance at stores like Whole Foods, and they do a really good job of being transparent about the source of their food, and where things are raised, and how they're raised, and so people feel like they're being paid attention to, and their questions are being answered. Whereas a lot of times, yes, if you go into a small halal meat market, good luck getting a lot of information, or good luck having a beautiful presentation, or sometimes cleanliness is an issue, or people feel like there's not enough meat on the bones, or these are problems. These are definitely issues. But how do we solve those issues is my question. I mean, does that deter you as a consumer completely away from supporting a halal business, or does it make you they're not taking care of the aesthetic of their stores and the presentation and the quality of their meats? I mean, uh, I've never been sick from a halal meat market or anything like that, but I certainly have felt frustrated, when I see something that just isn't appealing or pretty, or like they haven't taken any effort to respect a customer, and having those things enjoyable to shop for. Um, that's why when I first started my website, I was so excited when I met or found brands like Crescent Chicken. I don't know if probably everybody watching this knows about Crescent Chicken, but for the first time, as a Muslim, I was able to buy chicken that was packaged beautifully and cleanly, and I could get it off the shelf, put it in my cart, and feel I could get it off the shelf, put it in my cart, and feel normal rather than going to a local butcher, which I really wanted to support, but sometimes I would come home with multiple feathers still in the chicken, and it just it was inconvenient, it was unappealing, it was hard to cook, so there are some companies and people who are really trying their best to make things better, and then there's the small guy who you feel like, okay, you would like to support him, but he's just not up to par and up to the standard. And then you find out things that seem unethical or whatever, and that just you tell me, because I'm going on some of the comments that you guys gave me about what turns you off from buying halal or supporting halal. And I really need to have this discussion, because I want to know where I'm going with this whole thing too. Um, am I sort of speaking to the choir? Am I just are you guys all over it? Like, this issue has been, we've seen brands come and go, or we've seen people try the whole halal thing, but we're just not into it, or it just is too expensive. That's another thing, people say it's just too expensive, and we just say Bismillah and eat chicken, or we're not eating pork or whatever. I mean, I just want to hear from you and what you guys think about that. One of the complexities of all of this is interpretation, right? Us Muslims, we come from so many different countries, cultures, ethnicities, socioeconomic backgrounds, schools of thought. So, but that's a good thing. It's a good thing to have these varying opinions and varying feedback, that promotes a lot of interesting thoughts and discussions, and you can cover a lot of gray matters that way. It's not all black and white. There's not some things are, right? No pork, no alcohol. That's pretty black and white. But a lot of other things are, kind of gray. So people don't need to fight about it, right? We just need to kind of figure out what is turning people off about halal, and is it an older generation? Is it a younger generation? I feel like halal fast food is really in and trendy and popular right now. You have the halal guys that started in New York City, and I remember the first time I went to their food cart, and I never visit restaurants more than once because I like to try different things. But that night that I went there, the line was, down the street, first of all. But the sandwiches were so good. I went back again the next night and put that hot sauce on, and it was so, so hot. And I just suffered through it and ate it because it was so darn good. And, I was really proud of them. Like, wow, they are making this street food really delicious, and people in line, they're not Muslims, and they're not, and the halal guys are not afraid to say, that's their name. Actually, they didn't even name their own business. I think the customers did or something like that. But and it was a really cool story. I really like that. So that's another thing too. Like, there's that association with halal food being Middle Eastern or South Asian, and then it becomes a question of, are we boxing in and compartmentalizing halal as to one or two different ethnicities, and not taking it up to that next level of similar to kosher, where certain things and dishes and products can just be that kosher or halal label normalized. Are we doing enough to make that happen? I don't know. I'm trying over here. I'm trying my best, in my own way. But sometimes I feel like it's perhaps, not what people want, not what consumers want. And what it is too is I'm in a different country now. I'm in Turkey. For some of you, you probably know that if you watch my Instagram or Facebook. Being outside of the U.S. has given me a totally different perspective, on halal. Has given me a totally different perspective, on halal. And I've heard this from many friends who live overseas in Muslim countries or Muslim majority countries, that people do look at you a little weird when you say, my work or my business is making cuisine halal, making recipes halal, because they just sort of take for granted that everything is halal unless it's obviously not, like pork and alcohol. But in the U.S., that was so important and pertinent because you have this desire, demand, whatever, from Muslim consumers to do that. And you have this gap in education from people who don't understand what halal is, who wanted to understand it. But that's not the case here. But what is the case that is the same everywhere is the issue of what's like really in our food, food fraud, food contamination. Even in Turkey, for example, there are certifiers who are trying to really put the halal label on stuff. I don't think people really realize the importance of that. And they might say, oh, certifiers just try to make business from it. But, that may be the case for some of them, but I don't think most of them get into that business for that reason. Like, they really do care about making sure that what they're certifying truly is halal. Like, I've read stories here that, they might mix beef with pork I don't know if it's by accident or they, sometimes what happens is when they grind meat, things get mixed up. So it is important to say, like, somebody watched that process and made sure that everything was halal. It's an assurance, because today's food system is so vast and it's so huge and it's complicated. So it's not like, you just go to your local butcher and a chicken is a chicken and beef is beef and end of the day, it's all, one product. It's in grocery stores, it doesn't work that way anymore. And it hasn't worked that way for a long time. And, uh, you know, these countries are catching up to that mass production of food. Turkey's got, so many food products. For example, all of the candies and chocolates and fast foods, and I wouldn't say fast foods, but I would say like processed foods. I wonder sometimes, like, how do they manage it all, and what's in those products, because not everything is halal certified. But I understand why certifiers want to make sure that they are getting on top of that stuff, because you're getting ingredients from probably different parts of the world, and everything has to be assured that they're from halal sources. So countries like Malaysia are really on that, and they're really good with ensuring that. But they're probably, them and Indonesia are probably the two countries that really are uh, really, really on top of it. So, but then I wonder, do people just not care because it's too complicated to understand, or they say, this is just too hard, it's too difficult, I don't want to make my life harder, so I just do my best and eat what I can, and at the end of the day I have to put food on the table. You're a mom of kids and family, you have to, that's hard. You really, I understand, like, not wanting to spend all your time deciphering ingredients and reading labels and trying to figure all this out, so I'm going on and on here and sort of, you know, uh, you know, trying to kind of explain a little bit of my frustration too, because I feel like if we supported more of the halal businesses, we wouldn't be losing in on this. There's a great opportunity right now for Muslims to demand with their dollars, lira, euros, pounds, whatever, to demand not just halal, but like halal organic, fair trade, sustainable, all these labels like that are in line with the Islamic faith and tradition. And to say, we want good things, we want good food, because there are receptive companies out there today who are saying, you're 1.6 billion Muslims around the world, and we want to sell to you, or we have Muslim businesses we should be supporting, who want to stay in business, and they really understand halal in a deep way. But if we don't sort of get on this ideology of, if we don't support, these things go away, and then what do we have to complain about? Because this is a really hot time. Food is a hot topic. What's in your food is a hot topic, and that's a great thing. But I feel like there's this disconnect between the Muslim community and business or something. Maybe that's not even the right term, but there is some disconnect, of which I see, the result I see is sort of apathy. I see an apathetic, or maybe it's tired. Maybe people are just tired and they don't want to, because we're dealing with other things, Islamophobia, politics, economics. Things are difficult today, so this is the last thing people really want to worry about. That's why I need to hear from you. I need to know from you, what is it that maybe stops you from caring so much about if something halal or not. I'm not saying you specifically don't care. I'm just saying, for those of you who kind of are lax about it, there's no judgment here. I just want to understand what is your thinking, and where are we going with this forward? Is it just in America, the Muslims in America are the ones interested in labeling things halal and getting that halal product? Or is it the Muslims in America who don't care and just want to eat, what everybody else is eating, as long as it's not pork and alcohol? Or is it the rest of the world that is saying, we have bigger fish to fry, and we live in Muslim countries, and we trust that whatever comes in is halal, and that's it. What is it? Yeah, what is it? Because I I care so much about this industry, and I care so much about food being halal and healthy. I don't support a label on a halal product and then find out that there's um, questionable, unhealthy, chemical laden food dyes and colorings and preservatives and junk or fake food that, believe me, I have seen. So um, I care because I believe that the interpretation of halal and tayyib should mean that promotes wellness in people, that promotes really great food and sustainable ways of bringing that to your plate. That's humane treatment of animals and the people who are rearing those animals and the people who are growing the food. So all of that to me is really important, and I don't want to see it go away. And maybe I am just looking at it in a totally different wrong way. But when I bring up this topic, my the feedback I get is kind of like crickets. I mean, I posted a picture of street corn here in Turkey, and it got so many shares and so many comments and so many likes. And then when I posted that we were going to have this conversation, it basically went silent. And I'm thinking, that's exactly why I need to open this up and talk about it, because don't you think that there needs to be a discussion about it, or not? Tell me, you're just wrong. You're thinking about it too much, you're overthinking it, or why bother? Just go, make recipes. That's all people want, and they just want to learn to cook, or I love doing that too. But since I came into this halal industry world, when I came into it, it was really just at first to share my love of cooking and sharing recipes that I created and with halal stuff. But as I went forward and went deeper, it was so fascinating to understand food science and what the food scientists do to ensure that something is halal or not. The Islamic understanding of what is halal and what's not, and all the different gray areas in between. Meeting really interesting people who were taking that product idea and then bringing it to the masses. I mean, it's a fascinating world for me. So I don't so much want to let that go in any way, but I just really need to understand, where you all are in that, and what do you want to see? What do you want to see from me? And what do you want to see from the industry as a whole? And tell me, where you are geographically, so that I can also understand, your where you're coming from, literally, because that kind of matters. Now that I'm in Turkey and not in the U.S., I realize that that's kind of a big difference. So it will really help me to understand what your thoughts are, and then where you are coming from about that. So I'm just gonna stop here. I was hoping to go on for an hour, but I can't really see any comments yet. So if you have comments, please, even after this is done airing, go ahead and add your comments. And I'm gonna check this tomorrow and the next day, and see if people do say anything or respond, because I just really want to have the discussion, and I really want to hear from you. So I'm going to sign off and have my halal burger here in Turkey. I really crave American style hamburgers and cheeseburgers here. So I do that every once in a while. And local grocery store will combine beef and lamb, so it's really nice. if you ask them. So, really good stuff. But even here, you have to be careful and cautious and read labels. And I never thought that was going to be the case because I just was so excited to be in a place where I thought I wouldn't have to do that. But that's the way of the world. It's not a Turkey problem or a Muslim country problem. It's just the way of the world. I mean, we are living in industrialized times and convenience foods are everywhere. So we have to manage that. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I really appreciate your comments and your feedback and your discussion. And you can always, if you don't feel like commenting here and you want to just say something in private, you can do that. And my email is contact@myhalalkitchen.com. So I'll see you guys hopefully in another video. And what happens here will really be telling in terms of where I go forward with my work and what direction I take this whole halal food and cooking thing in. So hopefully I'll get to update you guys soon. All right, take care and salam alaikum. Trying to figure out how to turn this off. Yep, stop streaming.